Get ready. 2022 will be Blackpool Pleasure Beach's 126th year in operation, having first opened its gates in 1896. Of course, this impressive longevity owes a lot to the Thompson family, who have owned and operated the park since 1931. Leonard Thompson, the original owner, was known to have a great friendship with Walt Disney, and Blackpool Pleasure Beach was actually one of the parks which inspired the original Disneyland in Anaheim, California. With that being said, the only way for any park to survive in the modern era is to constantly be innovating and adapting its offerings to maintain and grow its annual attendance. Sometimes this means being ruthless when it comes to retiring certain attractions so that they can be replaced with something more modern. Blackpool Pleasure Beach currently operates a total of 38 attractions and has seen many more close over the years. In this latest trip to the attraction graveyard, we pay our respects to 10 Blackpool Pleasure Beach rides that are sadly no longer with us today. Before we do though, we would ask you to like the video and subscribe if you enjoy the content, as it really helps us out a lot and motivates us to keep making content. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's jump into the video. Get ready. Number 10. Magic Mountain. Magic Mountain was a junior dark ride that stood in Blackpool Pleasure Beach for a whopping 78 years. Opening way back in 1932 under its original name The Grotto, the ride saw its last run in 2010, making way for the then incoming Nickelodeon Land and more specifically, Dora's World Voyage. Although coined as a junior ride, many older guests still enjoyed Magic Mountain. Themed around a fantasy world, Magic Mountain took guests on a journey filled with a variety of different animals and pictures. In our opinion, it's amazing to see a ride run for such a long time, and we're sure many viewers have fond memories of this attraction. Number 9. Goldmine. Next up on our list is Goldmine, another defunct dark ride. Goldmine wasn't quite as old as Magic Mountain, but it still had a pretty decent run, operating from 1971 up to 2011. The ride was eventually replaced by the popular Wallace & Gromit Thrill-O-Matic, which is still in operation to this day. We think it's fair to say that Goldmine wasn't the most immersive dark ride we've ever experienced. However, what it lacked in modern effects, it made up for in grit and character, which actually made it quite an engrossing ride. In terms of the actual ride experience, guests would sit in the mine train cart and be transported through underground tunnels with various scenes of the gold miners hard at work. In short, we think the timing was right for Goldmine to retire when it did, and getting Wallace & Gromit Thrill-O-Matic instead definitely softened the blow. Number 8. Monorail. We have to admit, the closure of Monorail at Blackpool Pleasure Beach in 2012 really did hit us hard. For us, monorails and theme parks go hand in hand, and they add to the overall experience of visiting a park. Walt Disney World probably has the most impressive monorail system due to the sheer scale it covers, 14.7 miles. But Blackpool Pleasure Beach's monorail definitely provided a useful and enjoyable service during its time in operation. Opening in 1966, the monorail initially had two stations, one beside the car park that could be used by guests as a mode of transportation to the park's gates, and then another in the centre of the park. In its later years, only the central station remained open, meaning the actual transportation element of the ride was no longer there, but it was still an enjoyable and relaxing experience for guests nonetheless. Much of the monorail structure is actually still in place in the park today, so this one could potentially rise from the dead someday. Number 7. Drench Falls Log Flume. Honestly, we couldn't think of a more apt name for a water ride than Drench Falls Log Flume. One thing that was absolutely certain about this ride was you were sure to get drenched. For this reason, it was always recommended to do this ride last, especially given the UK climate. Initially opening in 1967, the ride ran all the way up to 2006. It was announced that a new ride would be taking its place for the 2007 season. This ride was Infusion. Drench Falls Log Flume was a pretty standard log flume ride, in that guests would be transported to the top of drops in log-shaped boats before plunging into the water below. Overall though, a pretty solid attraction and one that we're sure is missed on hot days. Number 6. Wild Mouse. Wild Mouse was a wooden coaster and also the most recently defunct ride on this list, running for the last time in 2017. In total, the ride lasted 59 years and was a fan favourite throughout its time in operation. Interestingly, Wild Mouse was actually the first major ride to be constructed at Blackpool Pleasure Beach after the Second World War. At its time of closure, Wild Mouse was the smallest out of all the Blackpool Pleasure Beach adult coasters. In total, the coaster could reach a max speed of 35 miles per hour or 56 kilometers per hour, but only had a max height of around 15 meters. The ride itself was quite short, lasting around 1 minute 30 seconds. Granted though, the space it had to operate within wasn't very big. To sum up, we think Wild Mouse had probably run its course. And although it's always sad to see a piece of park history be retired, we're excited to see what Blackpool Pleasure Beach decides to do with this space left over. Number 5. Noah's Ark. Next up we have Noah's Ark, which is another of the Blackpool Pleasure Beach rides that had an extraordinary run, operating for an impressive 86 years. Noah's Ark was a funhouse style attraction themed around, you guessed it, Noah's Ark, before it finally stopped operating back in 2008. The main part of the attraction was found in the ship itself, which rocked back and forth to simulate a boat moving through the choppy sea. Aside from this, Noah's Ark had everything else you might expect from a funhouse style attraction, including rope bridges, wobbly floors, and stepping stones among other things. Many guests were upset when the attraction eventually closed, but as they say, all good things must come to an end. Number 4. Trauma Towers. Similar to Noah's Ark, Trauma Towers was a walk-through funhouse style ride themed around a haunted hotel. Interestingly, Trauma Towers is actually the amalgamation of two separate rides in the park, the Haunted Hotel and Tagada. After the merge, the ride was then officially renamed Trauma Towers, and the ride's old Tagada ride area became Baronial Dining Hall, the ride's final scene. In total, Trauma Towers consisted of 15 different scenes, all filled with their own spooky effects and animations. The ride operated for the last time in 2008, and it was announced in 2009 that it would not be returning. Part of the reason given for its closure was that some areas of the building were becoming damp due to the adjacent dancing water show. In our opinion, Trauma Towers was maybe closed a few years prematurely and is definitely an attraction we remember fondly. Number 3. Turtle Chase. Another ride that lived a long and prosperous life, Turtle Chase, was a tumblebug attraction that operated from 1935 up until 2004. Originally the ride was called Tumblebug before its name was eventually changed. Although simple in ride experience and structure, Turtle Chase was a classic Blackpool Pleasure Beach ride, so fans of the park were sad when it was eventually removed. After its removal, the land it occupied remained pretty much dormant. The lack of construction of a new ride to replace Turtle Chase was also a cause of frustration for fans. However, in 2016, Blackpool Pleasure Beach finally released plans for a new steel coaster, which was to be built on the land once occupied by Turtle Chase. The coaster was none other than Icon. Number 2. Black Hole. Next up on our list we have a ride that, relatively speaking, actually seemed like it ran for a very short amount of time. In actual fact though, Black Hole ran for around 20 years before its eventual closure in 2006. Although never seen as a major attraction, Black Hole was still a popular one during its time in operation. The ride itself was an enclosed waltzer ride that was housed in a pretty cool looking futuristic building. The ride was closed to make way for another now defunct ride, 4D Cinema, which was an additional charged theatre show. However, after only 1 year, 4D Cinema was also replaced by another attraction. Number 1. The Whip. Last but not least we have the Whip. Incredibly, this attraction lasted 87 years in operation, from 1921 until 2008. This longevity was something that the ride was very proud of, to the point that a plaque was erected on the ride specifying its opening date. Some people do actually contest whether or not the ride did actually open in 1921, but on this occasion we'll go with the majority. The Whip itself was a teacup or waltzer style ride, which was also accompanied by its smaller sibling ride, Junior Whip, which was also closed the same year. All in all, the Whip had probably overstayed its time, as it was a more classic amusement park ride, when at the time, Blackpool Pleasure Beach was going in a more sophisticated and quite frankly, bigger direction. Still though, it's amazing to see a ride last such a long time, and we're sure many guests were sad to see it go. If you enjoyed this video, check out our Thorpe Park Attraction Graveyard video on screen now. That concludes our trip to the Blackpool Pleasure Beach Attraction Graveyard. Now you're ready. Let us know in the comments which of the defunct Blackpool Pleasure Beach rides you missed the most, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already.